Well, we got a big moon up in the sky and some summer stars that are pretty bright. And we got you in your backyard. I'm joining you. I'm Stargazer Mark. Thank you for joining the American Space Museum as we do backyard astronomy on Mondays to take you in your backyard and see the sights that you can see even in your light polluted home. Wherever you live is probably light polluted unless you're lucky to live out in the farmland or mountains or maybe near the ocean. But we're going to talk today about Stargazing 101. We have a full moon this Memorial Day weekend of 2024. It's called the flower moon. Obviously, there's a lot of flowers popping out everywhere, so that's an appropriate full moon. Then we're going to touch on a little bit about Apollo 10 when you look up at the moon. 54 years ago, was headed to the moon on the barnstorming 10-mile plunge down to the lunar surface with the lunar module Snoopy. We're going to talk about that with Gary Allgaier, our favorite Apollo structural engineer, tomorrow, about Apollo 10 on its way to the moon in this date in history in 1969. And we're going to just kind of tease you a little bit with getting outside and enjoying the beautiful summertime skies. Of course, we're still looking at spring. Summer's officially about a month away, June 22nd. But it feels like summer wherever we're at across the fruited plain. And I want to encourage you to get out and get some starshine occasionally. And this weekend, get you some moonshine. It's the kind of moonshine that you can't get too much of course. So, looking around here at the night sky from your backyard, I want to, binoculars are the best investment you can make, and everybody's got binoculars, usually to watch sports. Get those 7x35s out. These happen to be some nice 8x60s. 60 is the big number here. The bigger the number, the wider the optics is that's gathering all that light. But you can see a lot with binoculars, and just I talked about getting outside and enjoying the sounds of the night. You lay out in the lawn chair, put that phone, leave it in the house, get away from the TV, and get you a star map. That's where you start. Get you the night sky. There's all kinds of varieties. They're always available at your bookstore. And this is called a planisphere. And you put the date on the bottom here. And this one we've got put the date for the time, and it's 9 o'clock at night is when it's good and dark on May 20th there, 21st, right in there. And this is the way the sky looks above you. And then you lay down with a red flashlight. Where's my red flashlight? The red flashlight does not hurt your eyesight to make your eyes, as you know, dilate out when you see dark. You know that by jumping in the bed, you turn the light out, you can't see anything. 5 minutes later, you see everything in the room. That's because your eyes have opened up. Your pupil is absorbing more light, allowing more light to come in and be absorbed by your eyeball. And so it's very important. And then you protect that night vision by not letting someone flip the light on the back porch and stuff like that. Let them know what you're doing. But you got to get acclimated to the sky. And it's like anything that you learn, you get your head wrapped around it, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the mysteries of the sky are right here in front of you, the northern and southern hemisphere on this little piece of paper here. Very simple. This was the first way stargazers thousands of years ago plotted the stars on there. So also books. Can't have enough books. And as I got my binoculars around my neck here, you want your cameras and your binoculars around your neck. That's what the strap's there for. Don't hold them up like that, because if you drop them, bingo. You can set them down and pick them up again, of course, but they're really good to have handy because you might see something bright going overhead that could be the International Space Station. And if you got your eyeballs on it with binoculars, you might see a boxy shape to it. And we're going to talk about how many people are in space right now in Memorial Day weekend 2024, and how can you see them? Well, we'll talk about that here to stay curious. The library is filled with books about constellations, stars, and planets. This is an excellent one by Peterson guides, all right? You all know, many of you familiar birders, familiar with Peterson guides. And another one by Anton Ruckel. This gentleman, Anton Ruckel, is really a great artist, and you can pick up all these kind of books that, yep, they show you the sky at night. They give you a lot of detailed stories about observing how things came to be, little astronomy background on there, but all the maps are there. Okay, some are more simplified and look easier to read, like these of Anton Ruckel there. And that's the constellation Draco that's up right now. A real big constellation sprawling around, Draco the snake. So the resources are there. You just need to get away and get out. And I guarantee you, you'll learn something, maybe even about yourself as you're sitting there laying down in a beautiful lawn chair and absorbing the night sky, the sounds. You're starting to learn a constellation or two. Then maybe a meteor flickers by. Maybe you see something that doesn't blink and doesn't wander around, which airplanes do. That could be a satellite, all right? If you see them going north and south, that's a spy satellite. The sky's filled with a lot of things, and a lot of us live around airports, of course, so you're always seeing something in the sky. Of course, you got to be comfortable. This will be your best friend this summer, stargazing, okay? Your mosquito repellent, that's some good old backwoods there. Marty, that's green. Yeah, that's green for a green screen there. That's showing up there. So a little spray of that stuff and get it on you. Mosquitoes are horrible here in Florida. And of course, you might want to have some music in the background, but I like listening to the ambient night of the city going around. You might hear dogs barking, cats screaming, crickets neighbors chirping, yelling at each other. Huh?
Crickets chirping.
Crickets chirping, Marty, exactly. And thank you for adding that. Marty Winkle, of course, is here with me. We're live today, so if you got any questions, check him out there. We've got Logan Cope is here. Logan, thank you. He's our intern from Eastern Florida State University, and he's here running the board for the first time with Marty watching him there. So you see someone asking a question there, Logan. I didn't bring my smart tablet over here with me. You're welcome. No, there are no silly questions in astronomy, all right? So if you got a silly question, Mark Usiak, go ahead and ask it, all right? But we just want you to get out and understand that we're a simple planet, a very lucky one in this entire universe. And you can go out in your backyard and get immersed in it like you cannot believe. One of the first ways you start, I want to say, get you some snacks, all right? I like having some crackers with me out there. And of course, the greatest snack of all for astronomers, the Milky Way bar, all right? I'm buying the small sizes now because my belly can't handle a big bar. It just blows right out as sugar. But kind of important to just be comfortable and enjoy. And it's an experience. If you got somebody with you, like I have had lots of my life, I've had a buddy stargazer with me. We go up on the mountains of Tennessee and just get lost. Sometimes we look through our telescopes a little bit, but lots of times we'll just sit in those lawn chairs, watch the stars wheel overhead as they magically move because the earth is rotating to the east. They're not moving, but they look like it. An hour later, they've moved and some bright stars are up in the east that you hadn't seen before. Some bright stars in the west are setting that you won't see for another 4 or 5 months. So and astronomy, doing that with a buddy or two becomes more personal, and you end up talking about life in general. That's what I like about it. So let's get outside, find you some nice tools to enjoy some stargazing and not just be lost. If you can't make out the star patterns, you're not alone, okay? Very few people can. But just the bright stars are there, and they're your guideposts, and we have a couple constellations that are real helpers in trying to figure out what the lay of the land is, so to speak, in the sky. Well, let's beam up a picture here, Logan. We've got a great website called Sky Maps, all right? This is a free star map that you can download, that I downloaded here. I'm going to tell you a little about. There's the star maps right there. And this is beautiful. Evening sky map. Every month they do this. And it gives you what's happening each day of the month. And right now, we're looking at the moon on May 20th. When you go out and see the moon, it's near a really bright white star called Spica. And Spica is in the big sprawling constellation Virgo, the Virgin Mary. so to speak. And you're only going to see a few bright stars of that. It's a big constellation, but the whole area, you're going to say, is just devoid of many stars. And that's because we're looking out of our galaxy. Like we're looking out the back window where we came from, and we're looking at the universe away from our galaxy. As I look at this star map, there we go. You see that it's oriented with the south at the bottom, so and the north at the top. So if I was looking at the north, I'd put the north up here at the top, and then I see what the sky looks like. And it shows me that the Big Dipper there in the middle, right there's the Big Dipper up there, of Ursa Major, the Big Bear, is directly overhead and over the North Pole. And it really looks like quite a sight. There you see the pointer stars pointing to the North Pole up at the top, up there. And everything wheels around the North Pole. We got a constellation named Boötes, the bear herder. We've got Ophiuchus. We've got Virgo, the Virgin. We've got Leo, the lion. Leo is a backward question mark for its head with a right triangle, distinct right triangle as his hindquarters. And that's looking directly south. To the west over here, we see Gemini the Twins is setting. So if you go out tonight and look to the west where the sun's set, in the upper left, you're going to see a bright white star. That is southwest. That is Procyon, the star of the little dog, Canis Minor. And then you're going to see two stars over to the north, kind of side by side, very bright stars. Those are Castor and Pollux of Gemini the Twins, okay? And they're up there above my head, right up there. Then rising, you've got Hercules is rising. That looks like SpongeBob SquarePants, all right? And then if about 9, 10 o'clock you go outside, about 10 o'clock, 11 when it gets real bright, and you look to the east, you're going to notice a really bright star way north, and that is the bright star Vega. And Vega, we're going to see it all summer, and it's the lead star of the summer triangle. So let me have a sip out of my cup that Marty got me for Christmas one time. Caution, may randomly start talking about astronomy. So he knows me well. Good coffee there. Have you a beverage outside. Have you a snack with you outside to enjoy this so you don't get distracted to go inside. And you're going to enjoy it. And we're getting to the time of season where everybody's camping outside. Get away from that campfire or turn away from the campfire. You don't have to look at the campfire. You can enjoy the warmth and crackling of it and look in the opposite direction up there. So stargazing is something that I love all my life, and there's all kinds of tools that you can use. Here again is the Big Dipper being used to find different constellations in the sky by taking the bowl of the Big Dipper and going one direction. It runs into Leo the Lion and Regulus. You arc to Arcturus. You've heard me talk about that. Arc to the bright star Arcturus in Boötes, and speed on to Spica in Virgo the Virgin. All right. Now, if I could turn this like this, that's the way it looks in the sky. If I would turn the page, the Big Dipper is pouring its contents over the landscape now, and very easy to see. And you might even see the 3 leaps of the gazelle. There's 3 pairs of stars, of 2 stars each, that are near the Big Dipper, part of the bear's claws of Ursa Major. That's fun to find also. And actually they're marked on the they're marked on this right there's the 3 where you see the Ursa Major. His feet are the 3 leaps of the gazelle. Where'd all these names come from? Well, they come from our Native Americans. But there you see Polaris, the North Star, is not very bright. It's only 2nd magnitude, whereas Arcturus is 0 magnitude. It's 10 times brighter than Polaris. And Arcturus is the 3rd brightest star in the sky down there at the bottom. And Spica is pretty bright too. And where you see Spica, right here next to me, right there, Spica. The moon's going to be in that area tonight, all right? And the moon moves about 10 degrees to the west, east every day. Every day it moves, and it moves its own diameter, a half a degree, every hour, all right? So consider that. So with a chart like this, you can find a lot of constellations as you watch the wheel of stars go overhead. Now, I'm trying to teach you to talk like an amateur astronomer, and we're a couple days before full moon, so we're about the 12-day-old moon there on my chart. And then 14 days old is the full moon as I check it out there. There's Robert Law up there in Dundee, Scotland, Marty. I can see him enjoying a cocktail up there. And Doug Forrest is over here in Los Angeles, all right? Afternoon there in LA. So binoculars are a lot of fun to have out around your neck when you're stargazing. Get used to them. So the moon, when it's full, is 14 days old and it's 28.5-day cycle. So when the moon is 0 days old, it's new moon, technically. And then you begin the crescent phase. Here's 3 days. So we're going to see a week from today, the moon is going to be right at about 20 days old. Okay? It's going to be a day before first quarter. Or last quarter. That's when you see the moon in the morning looking south when you're driving into work. And it looks beautiful out there in a quarter phase. So talk like an astronomer. The moon tonight is 12 days old. All right. Wednesday night, Thursday morning, it's going to be 14 days old, or full phase, 29.5 days between the phases. A beautiful Indian portrait in there to give you a sense of how our country and our Native Americans and peoples all over the world, since civilized man began, have used the moon as a guidepost, as a mythical character. They've used the moon for harvesting, of course, under the moonlight that illuminates the landscape so beautifully, for planting and harvesting and hunting. Big parts of staying alive back in the old days when you couldn't go to the grocery store. You had to go out and hunt your food or grow it in your backyard. And we're so far removed from that, you can't even think like that anymore. But the moon was given different names by different cultures around the world. And the Native Americans seem to have had some great sense of the environment and what was going on. So we go by a lot of those moon names, and the full moon this weekend is going to be, actually it occurs on Thursday. On the 23rd is the full moon. It's about in the morning after midnight there. And then it's going to be near the red star Antares the next day when it rises on the 24th. And actually in parts of the Caribbean and Central America, West Africa, I think maybe even down in, maybe Key West might get lucky. The moon's going to pass in front of Antares, and we call that an occultation. The moon passes in front of stars every night, but it's the bright ones that draw our attention. We can't see the faint ones because of the moonshine on there. So as we get into the month of May and June, the inverted temperatures are still bringing some cold air down from the Canada into the States, and you might see an inversion layer that creates a ring around the moon. And the ring around the moon are caused by cold crystals that are reflecting the light of the moon. And that is a 45-degree diameter, or 22.5-degree radius from the moon out to the edge there. And the old saying of Native Americans was you count the number of stars inside of the ring, and that's how many days till it's going to rain. So obviously with the palm trees there, I took this one a while back here. But you might see the ring around the moon. But you also might want to photograph the moon, okay? And with today's digital cameras, there's all kinds of beautiful landscapes you can pick out. In the next 2 days, particularly, you don't want to get out on the full moon day. The full moon is the sun sets at the same time that the moon rises, okay? And so that's around 8 o'clock these days, all right? Sunset, I need to look that up. I didn't bring my phone over here. But the that is a Appalachia photograph of the moonrise that I took a few years back. Nice little landscape there. Makes a beautiful picture that you can frame and put on your wall there or give to somebody. You want something in the foreground This picture would be completely different without those trees in the foreground around it. Then you want to balance the moonlight with the landscape. Now, when the moon is full and days after when it gets up, it's too dark. The landscape's too dark to get much of that ambient light, and you would get an overexposed moon trying to get the landscape. You want to have the moon exposed so that you see the Maria, the seas that we see on the side that faces Earth. And here's another photo I took over the ocean, all right? And I balanced the ocean exposure and the moon exposure. Pretty good there. You see clouds over the Atlantic Ocean, and you can hear the waves crashing in this beautiful picture. What would make it even more beautiful is if I had a couple seagulls flying across there in the foreground. That's what I mean by having something. This is a good picture, but it doesn't have that wow factor like if you had a flock of birds or something flying in the middle of it there. And that's just luck. That's just sheer luck to have something like that happen. Or gosh, it would even be better would be to have an osprey with a fish in its hook going by there, wiggling around there. And but don't superimpose things like that on there. Beware that the moon. A lot of stupid pictures are being photoshopped about the moon being gigantic, and you can always cover it up with your little finger. I always find that amazing. It's a half a degree across. Your arch stretched finger is a half a degree, all right, in any human being's ratio. That means 360 moons could be stacked from one horizon to the top to the other horizon. It's very small, but it's dynamic in our eyes, called the moon illusion. And it looks big in this photograph because you got mountains there, you got trees. That gives you an illusion of a big moon, as does this picture of it over the clouds in the Atlantic Ocean there. So enjoy some photography with it. Sometimes the tripod will help steady your hand. You probably want a high ISO like 1,000 or 2,000, but you want to look at the back image being in your camera and make sure that moon is not overexposed and just looks like a bright flashlight in the sky. That's no good. You want the moon to show the Maria, the dark areas there. Then you know you've got a photo of the moon on there. So, well, we've got some history being made, like I mentioned, where Apollo 10 with 3 astronauts who are all deceased, Tom Stafford, John Young, and Gene Cernan, all great names in the annals of America's space program, were headed to the moon 54 years ago. No, wait. 55. We're talking double nickel, Marty. And you were there. He don't like thinking about half a decade later. Who does? But when you were young, Marty, he worked on the lunar module there on the right. This is an artist's conception of our moon ship. This is where we went to the moon, gang. And the only place that the humans could get is on the command. They couldn't get in that cylinder area. They could only get in the triangular conical area there, and then the silver part on the right of the lunar module. They couldn't get in where that Kapton foil is. They couldn't get in over here where the engine and all the communication and life support systems are. They were cramped in those 2 little areas where they're docked right there. And Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan went down within 9.5 miles of the moon. It was not without problems, and we're going to have Gary Allgaier here to talk about that tomorrow. But the last time we looked at the moon was December 2022, Marty. Here's a picture of the moon taken from the Artemis uncrewed Orion spacecraft that looped around the moon. And this is one of the closer pictures it took when it was about 3,000 miles away with some telephoto lens there. And this was as close as the Apollo 10 got to the moon. That's about 9 miles above. You see this area of the moon is a well-known charted area there that I actually made a sketch of years earlier or years later of. So this is not a wonderful work of art, but it is to impress upon you to do what you can to make your own impressions of the moon. No one owns the original when it comes to astronomy. How about that for a thought? No one owns the Orion Nebula. Nobody owns the moon. No one owns the Andromeda Galaxy. You can do what you want with those just the way you wish. And here I've made a sketch of the moon that looks pretty similar to what the Apollo 10 took a photograph of the moon there. So I encourage you to get out and enjoy photography, sketching, a poem, maybe write a short story about people going to the moon. Uh, it's yours for the asking. And you can find with your own binoculars. Take this chart or just Google. This is a Jet Propulsion Lab lunar landing sites, Apollo landing sites. They're the 6 landing sites on the moon, and you can see 4 of them are concentrated right around the equator. Then you got Apollo 15 and 17 went a different path, which took more energy. Apollo 15 was quite a jump to go way up there. It was again orbital mechanics, but they landed near an old caved-in lava tube that looks like a river up there. Apollo 15 did, but you can see these. Not, of course, the flags flying and stuff like that. That's ridiculous. You never see that, even with the most powerful telescopes on Earth. We can barely see the flags, so we see them in the descent stage from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and other orbiters around the moon do show us where these spots are. But for your own satisfaction, you just look up there, look at that map, and look around and go, oh yeah, that's where Apollo 11 was, right off of Mare Tranquility there. The dark sea in the middle of the right-hand side, just past that oval sea called Mare Chrism there. So, and learn these names. This is nomenclature that might become ingrained 100 years ago in American language, where they're talking about, that they visited the Mare Numbium on vacation or something like that. So I'm encouraging you to get out and get some moonshine, but just don't look up. Look up with some binoculars and look up with a map and figure out a few of these names of the Maria and some of the bright craters. You can do it, and it's fun to do, and your brain will thank you for it. Well, who's orbiting Earth? You can see them from your backyard. That's why I threw this in. Who's orbiting Earth right now? How many human beings, how many Earthlings, as Nicole Stott, one of our favorite astronauts, loves to say, how many Earthlings are in orbit around this third rock from the sun? Well, 10. Though I got May 7th there, it hasn't changed because we haven't gotten 2 more up there for the Starliner. We're waiting on Butch and Sonny to get up there to make it 12. But right now we got 7 on the International Space Station, including 3 Russians and 4 Americans. And then the other superpower on Earth, China, has 3 tachionauts orbiting the Earth, all right? And, I grew up in the 60s, and that word superpowers was a big deal in the headlines of the newspapers at the time. And, I never considered that all 3 superpowers would have human beings orbiting the Earth at the same time. Now, we're not friends with China, okay? We are friends with Russia still in space, though we don't like what they're doing to the Ukraine, and we're fighting against them there. But still, it shows that the battlegrounds are on the surface of the Earth, and peace can be made in the orbiting the Earth. Why in the world the International Space Station has never been chosen as for the International Peace Prize is beyond me. It's been nominated a few times, but it certainly should be given the Peace Prize just as a symbol of what Earthlings can do when they cooperate. Well, Dave Stangy's watching. Keith Sewell, Keith is now the an ambassador for Astronomers Without Borders, I think. Good for you, Keith. He's always educating himself and learning things. Doug Forrest is watching. Gary Gerald. Thank you, Gary. I left the Vidalias at home. I'm going to have to bring them tomorrow and pass them out. Gary brought me a big bushel of Vidalia onions Saturday, Marty. But I did eat some, and they were delicious. Carlton Bailey's watching. Thank you for breaking bread with us last night, Carlton. We ate with astronaut Charlie Walker. Great guy here on the coast doing his thing. Steve Jokums is there, and Tom Usiak's watching today. So thank y'all. Tom Usiak, you saw that we posted the Shuttle Fest videos, and sorry that that yours with the astronaut, with the art panel ran out of film at the end there, but we did the best we could, and we've got the other 4 panels on there for you to enjoy about Shuttle Fest. So, who's orbiting Earth? That is who's orbiting Earth. You know what? You can go out and see them. All right. You can go out and see them. Just download Spot the Station. That's NASA's app. I've got an app that's called ISS Finder. There's all kinds of apps out there to find the space station and when planets are uh, rising and the moon rising and so forth. Since I mentioned planets, there are no planets in the sky right now. Okay, the planets that we have are they're bunched up near the sun. All right, so there's no planets in the evening or morning sky, but they're shaking around a little bit. Venus is going to pop up in the evening sky, and then Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn and Jupiter will be right behind it, as we're going to see some action this fall with planets. Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus will be up also. So be checking that out. Mars is in the morning sky close to the sun, but you can spot the station usually twice a month. Usually there's a good passes, 3 or 4 in the morning twilight sky and 3 or 4 in the evening twilight sky. And you always have to have some sunlight bouncing off of those solar panels. That's how we see satellites in reflection. Now, some of them way up in the geosynchronous orbits are close to it, catch a lot of sun even at 11 o'clock at night sometimes. But most of these sightings of the space station in Tiangong also, I've seen the Tiangong Chinese space station there, shown there in relation to ours. I saw it a couple of weeks ago in 2 nights in a row. But these sites will tell you exactly where to look and count down and how long it's going to be visible. And usually the space station is the brightest star in the sky, except it's moving. And it gets brighter as it gets closer to you because the distance is closer as it gets higher overhead. So give them a wave and think about our 7 astronauts up there, 4 Americans up there, 2 women, by the way, we've got up there right now. We've got Tracy Caldwell Dyson, and Jeanette Epps is on there. Tracy, very experienced. Also, she's been up there 12 years ago is her last flight, and Janet's a rookie. So all doing good things up there. We'll talk about them later on this month when we get Starliner up there to make it 12 humans orbiting the Earth. Well, what's your Earthrise moment? That's what Nicole Stott wants to know. She's an expedition and shuttle astronaut and encourages people. What is your aha moment? Because Apollo 10, 55 years ago, is going to become the second human beings after Apollo 8 to see the Earth rise behind the moon. And they were affected by it. They grabbed their cameras. This is a shot from Apollo 10. And it changes your perspective to know you're orbiting the moon and everything that you've ever known that has ever happened, that anything has ever happened to human beings has happened right there on that beautiful blue and white marble in the sky that we call Earth. So what is your Earthrise moment where you went, aha, I get it? Doesn't have to be an astronomy thing or a space thing. It could just be, aha. I understand how to hit the baseball better. Or, aha, I understand how to find the Bootes, the constellation. It's easier than I thought it was by following the guide of the Big Dipper up there. So, what is your Earthrise moment? Think about it. Think about what affects you, what means things to you about being part of this planet, and I guarantee you it'll be worth good for your soul, so to speak, to be thinking like that. Just like it's great to see somebody's soul put on a piece of art, like our good friend Chris Calley pouring his soul out in his artwork about the Apollo era. I'm posting 2 beautiful montages that Chris Calley did this tonight and tomorrow on Apollo 10 that you can follow those. And this is Chris Calley's interpretation of inspiration with the Van Gogh background with his Earthrise there. So hope you all have enjoyed staying curious and staying star curious. We got a comment there. Thank you.
Keith Sowell says, I am the IAU Co-National Outreach Coordinator for the United States.
All right, Keith. I didn't have the exact title in front of me, but thank you for all you do to promote astronomy and science around the country there. Keith was also involved with our museum and retired, and he's got the luxury of just driving around doing what he wants to do in our beautiful country here. So thank you, Keith, for staying curious today. I know you understand what it's like to be a stargazer. It's more than just looking at the stars, it's reflecting on yourself as a human being. So get out and get you some moonshine this weekend. Lay around, get you some extra starshine there, and learn some constellations. I'm glad that you all have learned a little bit of stargazing. Get out in your backyard and enjoy that Milky Way, okay? So until next time, tomorrow we're going to have Gary Allgaier talking about Apollo 10 in the way that only a structural engineer who worked on the command module. This is Gary Allgaier. Thank you for being part of our museum. He's a great docent, and he's always there. As long as he's in town, I'm going to pull him on Stay Curious to get some wisdom from him. So Apollo 10 goes to the moon tomorrow with Gary Allgaier and myself, Marquette. Until then, I can't wait to see you to bridge the space between us.